Business is messy and unpredictable.
Sometimes lonely.
So lonely.
So lonely.
And inspiration can often come from really weird places.
We pick up where the bullet point blogs and the highlight reels leave off.
We start with the stories. Welcome back to So Here's My Story. I'm Jodi.
I'm Eliot.
And we are well into we had our first snowfall.
I know we did. It was
Yay.
a little bit overdue, I think.
Yeah, no. Well, we got 0 snow last year, except that one. I wasn't here though, so it doesn't count.
Oh, bro, right.
Therefore, we got no snow last year.
Because I dug out my car, but no, you weren't here, so it doesn't.
So therefore, it doesn't. Yeah, if Jodi isn't here, does the snow really fall? We had our first snow, and it's very funny. My daughter hooked a sled to our puppy and had her like running around in the backyard. The puppy was thrilled.
Yeah, you have to say that because of all the PETA listeners out there.
No, the puppy was very happy. No puppies were harmed in the filming of this video. But before we jump into our story or thanking our sponsors, we have a little bit of an announcement.
Oh, what's our announcement?
I just said, what's that song? Announcements.
Oh, God. Takes me back to my scouting years. Yeah.
Exactly. So we have started a private Facebook group.
I know we have. Very excited.
Yeah. And right now there's no one in there, so it's really quiet.
It's very private.
It's very private. Ooh, that makes it sound a little weird. It's not that kind of Facebook group. But so you can find links to it from our website, so here's my story.com. We'll also put links to it on our Facebook page. So this will be distinct from our Facebook page. And I just want to say a little bit about the intent and why we did it. So we're starting this Facebook group in part because of some things we heard back from you. One person in particular kept rattling in my head when, and I think I've even mentioned it previously, where she said, I talked to you the whole time I'm listening to you in the car and I'm chattering back at you the whole time. And,
right, but we can't hear that.
But we can't hear you. And I really want to hear those things. I want to hear those stories. And we've played around with using social media for that with like Twitter and whatnot, but we really want there to be a place for those conversations so you can also talk to each other about these things. So we'll be sending out some direct invitations to people on our email list and our Facebook followers and whatnot and Twitter, but you can hop onto our website, follow the links, join in, and we'll be continuing the conversation each week on whatever the podcast topic happens to be.
Absolutely.
All right. Do you want to thank our sponsors?
I do want to thank our sponsors. First, Tom Loveland at Mind Over Machines. Then Cat's Copy, the architecture firm of GWWO, and Mary Craft Staffing and HR Solutions. Great. So I believe you have a story. I do have a story. And it's something that it's come up a number of times, but it's been bothering me. So I'm just going to launch in. Okay. So here's my story. I was asked to go to lunch by another attorney that I know fairly well. Not friends outside of the profession, but I know her pretty well. And I could tell that she was really kind of bothered by something. And so it wasn't just a casual lunch. And so we sat down and once we got past the pleasantries and how everybody's doing and how the families are, she said, this has really been bothering me. I've been out of law school for a while, and I don't remember how long it was, but 7, 8, 9 years, something like that. And she said, and as you know, there's a lot of pressure to build your own practice. And I do a lot of work, but it's for other people's clients. And I know she's a very, very good lawyer. She's just very good at what she does. And she says, so you're good at marketing for lawyers. And just as a quick aside, lawyers suck at marketing. They suck at marketing. They just do. And so I like marketing, which makes me kind of the tallest of the 7 dwarves in that context. But anyway, so she says, you're good at marketing, and I just want to make the next, 6 months really focus on business development. That's what I want to do. I want to build my practice. I want to go out there. I want to get a lot of clients, because clients, as you know, in this profession, their power, their leverage. You can control your destiny if you have clients, but if you don't, you're kind of at the mercy of other people. Right. And this is obviously not just a lawyer thing, like being able to do business development, pretty across the board. Yes. Thing. Okay. Yes. Gotcha. And certainly in the services and whatnot. So as I was talking to her about this. So she's coming to you for marketing help. She was coming to me for help. Yeah. Building her practice. To be like her marketing Yoda. Yes. And I was like, clients you want. So money you like, destiny you have. But once we got past that, the other things that were reverberating in my brain were the fact that I know she is an incredibly talented person.
Mm-hmm.
She has a lot to offer, and she does great work for her clients. But I've known her for a while now, and I've never seen any real want to, other than knowing that she should do something. I've never seen her devote the time, or really, if we're being perfectly honest, I didn't think that she had a lot of business development talent. I think she has a lot of other great skills.
But when you say talent, do you mean like mojo, like the energy of it, the mojo of it?
I think part of it's the energy, part of it's the
talent,
the ability to start and nurture the relationships with people, to go out and find business. I'm not saying it very well, but there's a real skill set to being able to develop business. And it's not, what can I do to put you in a used car today type of skill set. But it is the ability to, turn contacts and acquaintances into more than that. It doesn't have to be friends, but relationships and people who eventually come to see you as a resource and a trusted resource. Mm-hmm. And the people that I've seen that are really successful doing this actually like doing it. They like reaching out to people. They like meeting with new people. They have a genuine interest in what those people are doing. And I think the best ones have a genuine interest in helping them, but helping them without agenda and talking to them and developing these relationships. I think it takes a skill set. And all the other things she brings to the table, I didn't see that she had that. And my lightning diagnosis was that she wasn't asking how to do something she really wanted to do. She was asking how to do something that she felt she should do, and she was scared if she didn't do. And I didn't want to be one of those people. You know how you watch the first round of American Idol and these people can't sing, and you're like, don't they have friends? Don't they have friends to tell them, oh, sweetheart, no, you can't sing. So part of me was like, should I be that missing friend from the first round of American Idol that's like, hey, you're great at so many things, but don't do this. This is not your thing. Work with what you have. So I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to necessarily be the one that discourages her, and I didn't want to be unresponsive or unsympathetic, but I kept thinking that whatever I told her was not going to work because I didn't think that she was going to be successful. And so now with all of that reverberating in my brain, I'm going to throw it completely into your lap and say, you're the coach, yes, or whatever it is you do. You're certainly the compassionate one. So tell me, what would your advice be?
Oh, wow. That is not where I thought you were going with this. Okay.
Surprise.
So here's the tricky thing, because this is not a moment for advice. And I actually think that is part of the problem of the thing that you were talking about right now is actually something I might get a little like fist bangy about. Okay. Because I think the instinct is right to always want to help somebody and like give them the thing that makes them do the next thing. But one of the reasons I cringe at the word coach, frankly, which you were sort of sidewindingly joking about there for a second, is that I think that there's a real disservice when somebody comes to you and says, I want to do X, and you get all excited and you help them take the first steps toward X without first making sure that X is actually what they need to be doing, and listening to that it's even the right thing for them in the first place. Because and it's not, this is going to be really tough to articulate. Thank you for making me articulate something that is really clear in my head, but may not come out.
That is part of the free public service I provide.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can, because the message is not that you shouldn't try to do things that are outside your comfort zone. Like I'm thinking of all these things that it might sound like what I'm saying is and that won't be what I'm saying. So I'm not saying don't do things outside your comfort zone. I'm not saying don't try to do things that feel new to you. I'm not saying don't reach for the stars, but it has to be the right fit and the right thing. It has to, maybe that's it. It has to like align with some inarguable laws of your human energy or whatnot. So let me tell you a super quick story that I think will start to. I was doing a strategic planning session facilitation for a growing nonprofit one time. And as we were talking, they already had it in their minds that their next big project for this next year was fill in blank with big project. And that was very much drawn from a lot of best practices of other organizations sort of similar to theirs, other organizations that had different focuses, but similar kind of, for lack of a better term, business models. Like they didn't just pull this out of the air. There was a lot of good, I'm making air quotes, wisdom, and air quotes, advice that this was the smart, best, next thing. It was the shiniest should. Not the advice you were giving them, just what they were hearing from outside. They came to the table. They had done a bunch of research. They had talked to other organizations. It's not like they pulled this out of thin air. Right. There was a lot of basis for why this was a really smart thing for them to do to achieve their really big goal, which was a very important goal. So I don't come to that conversation with any kind of bias about whether that's the right thing for them or not. But here's what I could not ignore. To do this thing, it would have actually required the board individually to, for lack of a better way to put it, cold call. Like they were going to have to call all these other organizations. They were also going to have to call their friends. I mean, it wasn't like a fund drive where they'd have to call people and say, will you give me money? But it felt, because I don't need to go into all the details, but it would have required them to be calling a bunch of people, asking for things, blah, blah, blah. Here's what I could not ignore. As we're planning, as we're like going through the action plans and who's in charge of what and what has to happen, I wish I'd had a video of it. Like every board member was like melting down in their chairs almost. Like the energy, it was like the oxygen was getting sucked from the room. The posture of everyone was like shrinking. Everything about it was like, mwah, mwah, mwah. And so I hit pause for a second and I was like, I'm curious. Would anyone in this room, are you even remotely interested in doing these things? I mean, because what it feels like is that you'd rather have your fingernails ripped off one by one than do these things we're talking about. And that was exactly the case. Like none of those people wanted to do those things. They were, and so what I can tell you without a doubt is that we could have planned the bejesus out of that thing and had it all worked out in a nice, neat little action plan. And if I would have popped back a year later, they would not have done well at the project because no one was behind it. It wasn't their like natural mojo-y energy. They would have dreaded those calls, so they wouldn't have made them. And then it would have become like an accountability project about somebody trying to wrangle the board members who weren't making their calls. And that also adds to the yucky energy of the whole thing. So I said, guess what, guys? It doesn't matter if this is the right thing to do. You don't have the energy for it or the excitement or the natural inclination to do these things. And so to make a very long story short, because this is becoming a long story, they started joking around with, because I was saying, what would you rather do? And someone cracked a joke about like, I wish we could do like bourbon tastings, ha, ha, ha. And everyone laughed. I was like, okay, pause. Let's roll with that for a second. Like, can you do that? And it didn't end up being just that, but the moral of the story or the punchline here is that they ended up making up something else that was a good fit for them, just them, perfect fit for them that they had the energy for, and they blew it out of the water the next year. Okay, but let me just ask you this, because you skipped over a part, and I really want to get your thoughts on this. What about, and I hear this all the time and probably not nearly as often as you do, that, all right, well, it's out of their comfort zone. It's not where they're naturally comfortable. But isn't that what a good coach does? To hold them accountable, set milestones and say, hey, you haven't made these calls and I want 5 calls by next week and I want you to report back and all of that stuff. Isn't there something to be said for accountability, especially when it's not in our comfort zone? Yes, if it's the right thing. And so here's the difference. Here's the difference to me. If we were just asking them to do something that was outside of their comfort zone, but it was on a direct, this is so hard for me to articulate because they feel so distinct to me. Mm-hmm. One is, I almost see it like there are like these guardrails for a person or an organization that is a path to what they really, really, really want. And it's their path for it. And you have to push them on their comfort zone as long as you are within those guardrails of like their thing. It's a completely different thing if they're on somebody else's path to that same destination. Pushing them doesn't do the right thing. Like pushing them actually won't work very well. They won't get the traction they need. And the difference is this. if I was, let's say because I sing in a band. Let's say let's take it back to the American Idol thing. Let's say I really, really wanted to become a professional singer, and that would be my thing. Someone pushing me and holding me accountable to sign up for auditions or like send out demos to record contracts or something like that. That's pushing me. There's a difference. Oh, that's it. There's a difference in scary, pushing somebody like to push past something that's scary, versus the kind of pushing that's like pushing a wet noodle because they don't have the oomph or the gumption it's just not their thing. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. There has to be a certain amount of drive that I think comes internally. And by drive, I don't mean if you don't have drive, then you're lazy. I mean, in addition to understanding a goal, like the lawyer that I start out with, a goal of developing her own client base that she knows is a should, that she knows is something good for her to do. But inside of her, the things that she'd have to do is not something that she has any interest in doing.
Well, okay, I'm so glad you brought me back to that, because that's actually at the core of this. So I want to take it back to that core story because I think I can land it better there, this thought. You said in that the people I know who are good at this, they're good at it and they like it.
And they like it, yeah.
Well, I wrote down, what's it? The question mark. The problem is it's the wrong it for her. So, because what you can't ignore, and here's why this is not something where you can create like a piece of advice for this story that you had, because there could be another person sitting in front of you and the answer would be completely different because the it has to fit. So here's my thought on that. So she has clients. She has, I assume, done some amount of business development that has worked for her, but it may not look, but I bet you it doesn't look like the way you do it. It doesn't look like the way somebody else does it. Imagining that there's one way that it looks, and if that way doesn't fit, then you can't do that. Because what you can't ignore is that she does need to build her client base. That is actually an important, the answer to what that story you gave can't be, oh, you know what, this just isn't for you. There's no way for you to go grow your client base. Like, that's not an acceptable end to the sentence, I don't think. I think what she needs is a custom fit version of what business development looks like so that she can I would never ask someone to change their end goal. Like, there is a need, there's an unmet need that she has in her practice.
Right.
I hold that sacrosanct. I don't try and talk someone out of their unmet need. I want to back it up and custom fit the thing. For her, it might look like, I don't know, imagine like I'm trying to think what it might be. I guarantee you it's not going to look like going out to a bunch of networking events and getting cards and then having this whole systemized approach to contacts and this and that and the other.
No, but I think her unmet need, and I think this might be where some of the analysis is as we're thinking it through. Her unmet need may not actually be building her client base. Her unmet need is to become indispensable. And her unmet need may be to be able to have readily visible and identifiable value. But it may not be that she's the rainmaker.
Yes.
And we have to figure out a different way to make her a rainmaker, because her end is in becoming a rainmaker. What she really wants is the leverage, is the power, is the ability to control her destiny.
That's perfect. And it lands a part that I sort of skipped, I think, in the facilitation story I told, was the way we got there was when we hit pause. We didn't just say like, what would be more fun? I said, I need you to get super clear on exactly what problem you're solving here. Like, is it that you need to fundraise a little bit more than you typically are? Is it that you're trying to have more visibility? Is it that you're trying to, because maybe it's a little bit of all those things, but if it's not, like, we only need a solution that fixes that tiny, tiny little bit of like exactly the problem you're trying to solve and nothing more. And often this is why I get a little cranky with some of the coaching industry, is that I never question that there is a very significant unmet need when someone sits down to talk to somebody else about something in their life. But I do often question their ability, because for whatever reason, what humans do in their brain is they have an unmet need. And often before they have the comfort level to go talk to someone else about it or seek out a solution, they feel this need to answer the question first. Like, oh, like she feels some sort of problem happening, some unmet need. And she's like, I need a big client base. That'll solve my problem. Maybe. She might be right. I don't know. But taking that pause to say, like, okay, exactly what problem is that solving? Because sometimes the problem, in fact, a lot of times, there's a way faster way to get to that solution than the thing that you're imagining would get you there.
Yeah, there is. And that's the question. What is the unmet need that, and I'll tell you, it just brought to mind the fact I was, in this conversation, and actually, truth be told, I was kind of the third wheel. I was watching this conversation. One of the people in the conversation is a very accomplished, kind of like a publishing agent. People would come to her, and her gift is to be able to take a book, and if it has, certainly all the right things, it's an important subject, it's well written, whatever. But she can form the relationships, and she can get you as close to, if not on New York Times bestseller, really make it a great book. And so she's in demand a lot. So I was sitting there listening to somebody say, hey, I really need to spend some time with you because I wrote this book and I want. And so she says, well, what's the purpose of the book? Do you want the book to position you as a thought leader or expand your platform so you can do X, Y, and Z? And really what was fascinating to me is that the person, and I'm sure they're not alone, the person she was talking to hadn't thought beyond the fact that I want you to help me get this to be a New York Times bestseller. But to my friend, that was just a means to an end. That's not that's not your goal. Your goal is why do you want that? Yes, so I can whatever. And so that's what I was missing. In my conversation with my friend, I should have said something like, all right, I want to have a large practice of my own so I can what? And crystallize that. Yeah. And that's what I was missing. Yeah. So here's a funny story popped to my mind when my husband and I were first it was very, very early in our relationship, and we were thinking about possibly buying a house. And we sat down with this guy, Seth, that we knew, who was, he'd gone through all of our like budgeting. They were trying to figure out like it was mortgage stuff, like how much could we afford and all these kinds of things. And he did it in this very holistic way where he first wanted us to look at all of our financial goals. And he wasn't just like filling out the mortgage app. Like he was looking at all these things. And I said, he goes, what are your financial goals? And I said, I really want to pay off my student loans. He said, and instead of just going, okay, here, let's plan for that, he said, why do you want to pay off your student loans? And I said, because that's like $350 a month. Like that would give us a lot more cash flow for, for a house or for other things that we want to do. Right. Sounds like a logical answer, right? It does. Yeah. Okay. But, so he looks up and down the page for a little bit and he goes, yeah, so let's get this straight. You want to pay off $60,000 and you want to aspire to pay off $60,000 in student loans so that you can have $350 cash flow when you could pay off the last bit of your car for $8,000 and have $400 cash flow. And I sort of laughed and he goes, this isn't about cash flow. He said, people don't like having student loans. It would feel good to check off your student loans. And if that's your goal, that's fine. But if you actually want cash flow, let's pay off your car. And he made me choose what my goal was. And the truth of the matter was, I was like, then everything, sort of like Tetrised around in my head when he said that, because it actually wasn't about cash flow, but I was using cash flow as a reason to justify to do what you wanted to do, to pay off my student loans. Yeah. And that, to me, I think about that story all the time because that's what we do. We come up with some logical reason that then will come out of our mouth with a lot of confidence to other people. And it sounds really good. Yeah. Sometimes it even had spreadsheets involved and whatnot. It doesn't mean it's the right problem to work. It doesn't mean it's the right solution to work on. It doesn't mean
that it will serve you to get what you actually want out of it. And the reason I get angry about this is people will work. I talked to a guy who wanted to double the size of his business in a really quick amount of time. And I just kept like something in my spidey sense was like zinging of like something ain't right here. Like it was, I just couldn't get a foothold in his why. Like what, so that what? Like he wanted to double it in kind of a dying industry. It was really confusing. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I dug and I dug and I dug and I dug. And it turns out what he actually really cares about is that he wants to create financial stability for a couple people that work for him who don't have financially stable situations and who've been with him a really long time. He wants to create more stability for him. And without going into all the details, there were like 10 other ways he could do that in a much, much, much simpler way than trying to double the size of this business. And here's what makes me angry about it. If someone had just listened to that and plotted him a path to, over the course of a couple of years, double the size of his business. A, I'm not even sure it's possible. So the disappointment there, the disappointment possibility is huge. But B, it's taking 2 zillion times more energy to maybe create what he wants, when over here you have an option to take a fraction of that energy and almost certainly get him what he truly wants super fast. Those two things don't even compare. There is no like balancing pros and cons. Once you can see them both, you're like, that one. So, but you have to pause and find out what the person's really after.
Right. And also, I think you also have to explore the other path, which is if I went with her and I said, okay, let's say that building $1 million practice is something that gets you your perceived sure. stability and success and leverage and power and whatever. Let's take a moment to explore what your life looks like with $1 million practice, because you don't just get it and then it's not a set it and forget it type of thing.
No.
So you're going to nurture those relationships and you're going to be held accountable by your other partners for continuing to build, because now you've established yourself as a rainmaker and business doesn't stand still. So you're going to continue those lunches and those dinners and those networking events and all of the things that go along with, remembering birthdays, whatever it happens to be, all of the things that go along with becoming a rainmaker and business development. And so if we sketch that out, because that's your life now. Now that you've accomplished what you want, you've got your $1 million practice and you're trying to build it into a $2 million practice or an $8 million practice. How much of that life do you like? Or is it just a lot more, at first it's 20%, then 40%, then 80% of your professional life you're just barely tolerating.
Right.
So, go down that path.
Yeah. It's like, exactly. Like I think we've even used this quote before, but my friend and mentor, colleague, Andrea Lee used to always say, it's a special kind of hell to get all your ducks in a row and then realize they're not your ducks. And, you build a practice based on doing things. Yeah. Cause it's not like you get to it's not like coasting on a bike where you pedal, and then you get to kick your feet back and coast.
Right.
If you build a practice based on being a rainmaker, then you have to maintain a practice.
Yeah. There's no coast in that bicycle.
A rainmaker.
Yeah, exactly right. And so
you have to bake it into the cake along the way. Right? You have to bake a cake that you're going to want to eat, I think is maybe the way I would say it.
And so that's the response to close out the question I asked you. That's the response that I should have and still have time to give her, which is, before we get your ducks in a row, let's make sure they're your ducks.
Quack, quack.
So that's our story.
But the discussion doesn't have to end here.
No, it does not.
In fact, we don't want it to.
No, we don't.
That is why we actually have our private Facebook group,
which we started to make sure that we could get your comments, your rants, your thoughts,
your stories. You can find links to that group as well as show notes and links to subscribe via email and how to find us just about anywhere you can possibly find podcasts at sohere'smystory.com.
And you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at SHMS Podcast.
And since we know it takes a village.
Yes, it does.
We'd like to thank our village, our super talented, incredibly patient team.
And occasionally snarky team.
Yeah, but in the best of ways.
In the best of ways.
Snarky.
Yes.
Good mockery.
So a huge shout out to the people who actually help us produce our show. First, our sound engineer, Tom Hansen.
Thanks to Christy Schmier for our brilliant show notes and all the other fantastic writing she does for us.
And to Taylor Mathauer for doing just a little bit of everything.
Including wrangling us. Which is no small feat.
No, it's not.
This is Jodi Hume.
And I'm Eliot Wagenheim.
And you've been listening to So Here's My Story.